What up, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Brando over here at the Daily Dope Show, and I think we're gonna do something a little different tonight. Something I've never done before. We're gonna go down the list of this Marijuana Moment newsletter, just for the hell of it, and then we're gonna move on to the commercials in Michigan, because because whatever. That's what I do, I guess. Sorry about the noises. So here we go. We're going to zip through this because there's some, the elections are coming up, and there's some information on here that you might want to know before the elections. So we're going to do that real quick. So they got this top things to know section. And this is at marijuanamoment.net. You can sign up for the newsletter. You'll get all this on a newsletter, and then you can read the stories. And if you're a Patreon member, you can get the inside scoop on other stories, and maybe there's a lot of things that you get for the Patreon. I don't want to go into it, but the link is on the page, or whatever page you're on Marijuana Moment will have a link to the Patreon down here. So go check it out. It would help to support Tom Angel and the crew over at Marijuana Moment, because let's face it, man, they are the hardest working people in this weed news business, and that's where most people go to get the real stories without a bunch of bullshit and puns and added things that you don't need, like what I give you. That's my job, I guess. I don't really get paid for it, but anyway, pay them, because they're in the trenches working. So anywho, wow, look, they have 337 Patreon supporters. Crazy. Alright, I think I should start this over, because I'm just shilling for those guys. But no, instead I'll just edit that shit out. So the top things to know. Let's get back to that. A new lobbying effort funded by New York alcohol retailers is aimed at convincing lawmakers to let wine and liquor stores sell marijuana. And I say to that, fuck no. Why do we sit here and put weed and alcohol on the same table when they've never done that before? What the fuck is the deal with that going on now? Alright? Every time you hear somebody trying to demonize weed, they're like, oh man, weed makes you and then they give you these symptoms, and it's like alcohol. The main one being that you drive like shit, which you don't on weed. So let's get over that. Let's forget that that's a thing. There's people out there that say, oh, what are you preaching this message that driving stoned is not some kind of dangerous thing? That it might be. I'm not saying it's not, but I am saying that it's not alcohol, where the guaranteed outcome of consuming cannabis and getting behind the wheel is that you're going to drive like shit. That's not the case, ever. And people that get too stoned to drive aren't going to fucking try to drive. I can't emphasize that enough. We're going to get into that later on. But anyway, no, on the alcohol, people, ain't that what happened in Washington? The Alcohol Control Board controlled the recreational marijuana rollout, and it was a disaster for medical marijuana. And I don't know. I haven't heard too many complaints about it, but it was a rough, bumpy road like they always have with any rollout. So anyway, moving along. A draft report from Washington State, speaking of which, environmental regulators highlights problems associated with testing marijuana and setting standards for what constituents quality cannabis products. Anyway, on the federal tip, before taking the job himself, Drug Enforcement Administration Acting Administrator Uttam Dillon was in charge of vetting candidates for the post and personally urged several to withdraw from consideration, citing concerns about their background checks. The Drug Enforcement Administration Museum will host an interactive discussion next week featuring drug artifacts from its collection. You know, what should be an artifact is the Drug Enforcement Administration itself. The Controlled Substances Act should be abolished. And quite frankly, if we can't get that, can we at least get this thing called Schedule 1? Can we get that taken right out and then the DEA eliminated right along with it? That would be great. Senator John Barrasso, Republican from Wyoming, and Democratic challenger Gary Troner debated marijuana policy. Representative Jackie Rosen, Democrat from Nevada and U.S. Senate candidate, tweeted, she is a U.S. Senate candidate, and she tweeted, unlike Senator Heller, I'll stand up for our legal marijuana industry and all the jobs and revenue that come with it. Thank you. And I am about fed up with these federal Congress people who represent people in a state that has legal marijuana, but they're not trying to represent the people. Now, you might say, well, Brand, there's a lot of people that don't like marijuana, and they're representing them. Well, what I say to you is, you lost. Where it's legal, those people are done. Those people that don't like marijuana, you don't get to have a say in it anymore. And it's kind of a little bit on the non-American, not freedom, not liberty side of things to say that you should be able to prohibit somebody from smoking marijuana. Come on, let's be real about it. Texas Democrat congressional candidate Catherine Krantz tweeted in support of legalizing marijuana. We're seeing this more and more down south and in places. Marijuana legalization, come on, let's just cut to the chase. It is an everybody issue. Nobody is still against it. And the people that are, come on, man. You got something better to do with your time than to be against marijuana? What is the fucking point of that, man? I'm against alcohol, but it's so hard to be against alcohol that I actually still drink the shit somehow. Louisiana Democratic congressional candidate Rob Anderson tweeted, quote, I support decriminalizing cannabis because I don't think locking someone up and preventing them from earning a living and providing for their family is acceptable. We have to reduce barriers for workers. Marijuana criminalization is contrary to that goal. Now, I've been saying this for a long time, but I actually lived it. Since I was pretty much super adamant about never caring, about getting whether or not I got caught doing what I was doing when I was growing completely illegally or whatever, I wasn't trying to get jobs either. I wasn't trying to work at, some place where you had to go piss in a cup and they discourage cannabis use when you're not at work, even if it's medical marijuana. I mean, it's just ridiculous to work for somebody else, in my opinion. That's just me. I don't like to work for other people, but to sit there and act like you can't smoke weed if you work for me, like, what even is that? So that's ridiculous. But yeah, locking somebody up for cannabis is just unacceptable. There's just no two ways about it. No amount of cannabis is worth somebody getting locked up for. What in the hell? It's just weed. So Utah Governor Gary Herbert, Republican, is calling on the federal government to update its marijuana laws. That's Utah, and that's a Republican. He reiterated that he is committed to enacting medical cannabis compromise legislation whether or not the state's ballot measure on the topic passes. And I always emphasize that if you live in Utah, please go vote yes. Don't listen to the hype. Don't care about whether they're going to pass this legislation or not. Just make sure that the actual medical marijuana proposal passes, please. Thank you. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster, Republican, and Democratic challenger James Smith debated medical cannabis. Kansas gubernatorial candidates debated medical cannabis and hemp. Awesome. How do you debate hemp? I'm interested in seeing more about this. Because, like, what's even the debate? So I hear this side of the argument. We need diversification in Kansas of our agricultural crops. This is a reason why I support industrial hemp. I will work with Kansas City legislation to get this done, as if he wins or whatever. So that's cool. He's the conservative, full-throttled conservative. I'm just saying, like, how do you argue that? How can you debate whether or not you're going to legalize hemp or what you're going to do when you do legalize it? Maine Republican gubernatorial candidate Sean Moody described during a debate how he evolved his position on medical cannabis. Well, congratulations, because 90+% of the country is on board with medical marijuana. You'd be kind of like an idiot at this point to be any kind of politician and go out against medical marijuana. New York Republican gubernatorial candidate Mark Molinaro said he's not quite there on supporting legalizing marijuana, but wants to make medical cannabis more available. Well, gee, guess what? It sounds like you're to the left of Cuomo. Like, is Cuomo seriously going to still be, like, not legalizing weed before the election? What the fuck? That would have been, like, you are guaranteed to win if you do something like that. I guess he's using it as a carrot stick, because that's what Democrats are famous for, carrot sticking marijuana legalization. And he thinks that maybe we got one more time we can do that. Maybe, because apparently this guy here is not there yet. So, anyway, Arkansas Democratic Attorney General candidate Mike Lee. Oh no, him? Wait, is that the same? It can't be the same guy. Anyway, he vowed to sue the federal government over its marijuana policy if elected. Cool. There's already people doing that. That would be Alexis Bortel and a bunch of other people that are suing Jeff Sessions and the federal government in general for the fact that its schedule prevents them from traveling, for one. And there's many other reasons that we need to take this off of schedule. Like, you always hear about these prohibitionists in states where it isn't legal yet, and one of their big arguments is, like, all this black market, underground, illegal activity still going on. Well, you know what? That's because there's still states where it's illegal, quite frankly. And it's a lucrative thing to grow some weed in a state where you can grow it and not have anybody really bust down on you until you get your final product. And then you take that extra weed you got and you just take a little stroll over to the next state over where it's illegal, and people are paying like twice as much for an ounce. Do you think that, you're going to stop that by just busting people for driving around with fucking too many ounces? No, you're not. You're never going to stop it like that. The only way you're going to stop it is, guess what? Make it so it's legal everywhere so that there's none of that lucrative, money out there. It becomes legal for licensed individuals in Oklahoma to buy and sell mature medical cannabis plants on Friday. Cool. Michigan prohibitionists launched a TV ad against the state's marijuana legalization ballot measures. Separately, regulators have been accepting online registrations for medical cannabis patients and physicians. I didn't do a clip about that because I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but that is pretty cool. Which, to me, it seems like, I don't see why we ever had to mail them in the first place, because a lot of the stuff you can do digitally through their website. And it's been that way for like 4 or 5 years. So to finally have like a streamlined, completely online system for this, that's pretty cool. All right. Thank you, Michigan, for finally getting your shit together there. And we'll be looking at those commercials in a minute, guys. And you know what? This video is getting a little long. Yeah, I might just cut this one off and make a whole new video out of that, probably. Get some more views, if you know what I mean. Not that I seriously haven't made 20 cents yet since I started monetizing videos. And none of them, by the way, just a little update on that. Since I started monetizing videos, none of them really maintain commercials. All right. It gave me the yellow coin, which means I only get limited, if any, commercials on my videos. If you've seen a commercial on my video, I'd be highly surprised. All right. So Alaska regulators are considering increasing marijuana licensing fees. That's a weird thing. I would look into that if it was Michigan, but in Michigan they lowered fees by making it so it was a lower amount that you pay, plus it was instead of 1 year, 2 years. So I have no idea why anybody would want to increase fees. Ohio regulators will begin accepting petitions to add new medical cannabis qualifying conditions on November 1st. Wow. Ohio's medical marijuana system has been it's been one of the bumpier roads. It's not like Maryland, but pretty bad. It's been a really hectic ride. I don't know what's going on, or if anybody has actually been able to have something in their hand and say this is medical marijuana that's okay by the Ohio government. I don't think that's happened yet. I'll let you know when it does. Virginia regulators announced that they will issue final approvals for CBD processing facilities on November 28th. Oh, wow. Drag your heels a little more. People are having seizures every day. California, and by the way, Virginia, my God, I'm pretty sure, I lived there in 1994. I'm pretty sure people are ready for legal recreational marijuana big time in Virginia. I don't see why you'd think that they're not. California's treasurer tweeted about marijuana business banking access issues. Yeah, join the club. Locally speaking, 5 former New York probation commissioners say that probation and parole officials should stop testing and locking people up for marijuana use. For sure. I mean, they're getting sick of it. And it's like that piss test thing. They know that most of this piss testing is because of weed. And weed is why most people fail their piss test, so they have to fuck them over on their probation, even though they're doing great on all other fronts. All of a sudden, someone comes in, they've had a job for a year, they got 2 more months to go on probation, and they're paying their child support payments on time. They got a job, they're paying their bills, and everything's going great. All of a sudden, they piss dirty for marijuana, and you have no choice but to put them back in jail. How stupid is the system, Anyway, San Francisco, California. Good job. I mean, San Francisco is one of the cities leading the way in criminal justice system reforms, in my opinion. Philadelphia is up there, but of course, Pennsylvania don't have legalized marijuana, so they're a little lagging on that department. But other than that, we've seen expungements and, non-prosecutions, non-arrests, citations instead of misdemeanors, and it's one of the most progressive places there is. San Francisco, as far as criminal justice reforms in the drug war, let's just say the drug war is ending in San Francisco and in Philly, and we're starting to finally see the new approach, which isn't the smart approach to marijuana like Sam would like it to be. The new approach is to treat drug addiction like a health problem, not like a criminal situation. All right? Treat people that sell drugs not as people that violated some kind of criminal code, but people that are in an economic situation to where they're so desperate that was the only economy available to them, and they participated in it. It's not their fault. It's the fault of whoever has made this economy so shitty. And by the way, rehab, forced rehab never works. If you want less addicts in society, give them an economy. Give people something to do, money to make. Right now people are hurting. Drug addiction is essentially just people trying to escape this bullshit. So Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said the government will move forward with free and rapid pardons for people with marijuana convictions. We were wondering about that when they started talking about the pardons, pardons or expungements or whatever other way that they can get your marijuana record cleaned up, costs money. So him saying that it's free and rapid, that's a great In my opinion, that's the first I've heard of it, and this is old too. This newsletter came out like, what, 4 days ago, 3 days ago. New to me, but I like to hear that it's free. Bermuda Premier David Burt pledged to legalize medical cannabis cultivation within months. Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte is urging people not to use marijuana. The Dutch Prime Minister? Dude, you guys have been doing the experiment for quite some time to act like now's the time to urge people not to use marijuana. And Amsterdam, by the way, has been going the way of weird over the last 5 to 10 years. It's almost as if there's some kind of a desire to shift marijuana tourism away from Amsterdam, and certain changes in their regulations and rules and laws kind of give, credence to that. Advocacy. Americans for Safe Access give Utah's medical cannabis compromise bill an F grade in analysis. And if you looked at me making a video about it when it happened, that's pretty much how I felt about it. The concessions were super not necessary. Come on. And talk about overreach. When you say that you want to make it so people with immunovirus can't get medical marijuana, you are basically saying that no one actually could be, these people could benefit from medical marijuana way more than any drugs or any remedies that you're offering them. And you're going to tell them that they can't do the one thing that has been proven to work for all of those diseases? Are you kidding me, man? That's the worst concession I've ever seen. I give it lower than an F. I say go vote for that shit and pray that they don't pass this compromise bill. And I don't understand why the advocacy groups for legalizing medical marijuana in Utah had anything to do with that compromise bill, except for to protest it and call it out for what it is. And if you guys pass the law, or if you guys pass a proposal and it becomes law, they have to get a supermajority all the way through to pass that shit. So make sure you go and vote yes, Utah, because that compromise bill is bullshit through and through. And by the way, that's the spirit of the legislator. They're going to be trying to throw as many wrenches as they can. You might, I just talked about how the rollout in Ohio was dog shit, and Maryland was legendary. One of the worst medical marijuana rollouts, took almost a decade. Come on. Well, that's an exaggeration. Sometimes I do that, and I'll call myself out. But just come on, for real. This is ridiculous compromise. Do not let that happen. Prohibitionist group Community AntiDrug Coalitions of America is urging its members to submit comments to the FDA advocating against marijuana rescheduling. The group's chairman submitted his own letter arguing against a change. Now let's see what that says. Now, I did my video about my comment, or one of my comments. Oh, God. Major General U.S. Army retired. What does that qualify you for? What do you think you're at? I write on behalf of the Community of Anti-Drug Coalitions of America to submit comments to the FDA pending review. They want to ensure the existent science-based criteria for international scheduling of marijuana, its extracts and constituents can be... Hey, guess what, dumbass? That's not science-based, what they've been doing to ban marijuana. That's prohibition propaganda. It's not. There's no science behind anything they did. He said that the legalization that's already happened, and even the medical marijuana legalization, has exacerbated the current drug crisis in the United States. The FDA and the international community should act swiftly to protect the public health. Just shut the fuck up, dude. You are complete. This is complete bullshit. Now, I knew that there would be some negative comments that would be sent to this FDA thing that basically were just total horse shit, and just to get some negative ones in there to counter all the tidal wave tsunami of positive comments that they've received, which is about 10,000 so far. And I looked through there for at least an hour and couldn't find one single negative comment in the whole thing. So come on, dude. It doesn't help your side when you totally throw everything at the wall hoping something sticks when it's all bullshit. All of it. Can you make one good argument against legalizing marijuana without completely using nothing but bullshit? I'm not going to give this thing any more attention because it's total bullshit. The Veterans of Foreign Wars of Missouri endorsed one of the state's medical cannabis ballot measures. Good deal. Science and Health. A study found that cannabis oil has significantly improves the symptoms of Crohn's disease and the quality of life of sufferers, but has no effect on gut inflammation. Poll found that Michigan voters, likely voters, support the state's marijuana legalization ballot measure 57 to 41. Now that is an important number because it says likely voters. And yeah, that's it. That's all you need to know is likely voters. Most of them, 57 to 41 that was polled, said yeah. The Desert News editorial board is calling for an end to the war on drugs. Good deal. MedMen, $78.7 million in quarterly losses. Now we're looking at marijuana stocks in general. They're starting to come back from a bunch of slumping. Now when they're saying they're starting to come back, I know the ETF that I have shares of is not what I paid for it yet, but I don't care. Like, this is like, I knew that when Canada legalized, it was going to be a little bumpy on the rollout, and right before the 17th of October, all the companies were doing the dumbest things and making stupid decisions, like trying to come up with a strain called Dr. Dre's Chronic that was like, Dre fucking immediately sued him. And I mean, like, every move they made was just dumb. Like, they bought some company that used to grow tomatoes or some shit, and the first crop of weed, we seen the pictures, just a warehouse full of just cashed out brown dead plants, and you had these pump and dump schemes by beverage companies coming in like, oh yeah, let's talk to these guys just to pump their stock, and they're like, oh, we're not interested. Boom. So a lot of people made a shitload of money on all that shit, on all the noise right before legalization, but now you're locked in and you have some shares and a nice chunk of portfolio action on marijuana stocks. What do? Dude, fucking hold on. Wait. You think these companies that are worth billions of dollars in Canada are just going to fall to the wayside? No, they're going to figure it out. Give them time. But what they're not going to do is they're not going to win the war on drugs. All right? They're sitting here trying to be like, oh, you know what? We're going to prohibit anybody else from growing weed, and you can grow 4 little plants, but be careful. We'll bust you with them, and all these strict rules. And there's like literally 40 new rules that you could get busted for marijuana, and we're talking misdemeanors and felonies in Canada since they legalized weed. It's like, what the fuck? New Prohibition 2.0. And it's to protect the profits of the people that are running the commercial marijuana industry. And if you think they want to get rid of the black market tomorrow, you're kind of, you don't see the whole picture. They don't want to get rid of the black market because the black market's why they can inflate their prices. They base all their projections to tell the investors all these good stories about how much money they're going to make everybody based on $10 grams or more. Because that's what the black market looked like. And they're like, oh, you know what? The black market's $5 a gram. We can sell it for $8. Then you add the tax and all that shit, ends up being about 10, and sometimes more. I seen an eighth last week coming out of Canada for like $70. Like, come on, man. Seriously. So that's yeah. I'm gonna Shit. Yeah, I'm going to break this off. It's a half hour. And I'm going to make another clip just about the commercials. All right. Tune in and subscribe. Peace.